Welcome to a Friday Reads, where I talk about what I read, what I'm reading, what I hope to get to next. I have an exciting announcement for next week. If you are a member of my Patreon or want to become a patron or anything like that, it's something new I'm doing, and it has me incredibly excited because I have a week off tomorrow. Essentially, I have more than a week off in May, but next week is like my in-laws are not in town yet. So it's truly a week off. I'm not teaching. I'll be done grading. I can prep for my summer classes, but truly, I don't have plans, so I decided to do a week-long readathon with my patrons from Monday through Friday. Here is the very chill bingo board. The whole goal of this is to just read, be motivated to read, so that's why there's prompts like read 30 minutes a day, check in every day about what you're reading, read 100 pages for the week. It's trying to help with the momentum, because a lot of us feel very in need of reading productivity and momentum, and I will be hosting reading sprints every day for them next week. So if you are a member and you somehow missed the notifications, it's happening. And if you would like to join, every tier gets access to it. So feel free. I'm just excited. It was one of my goals for the year. And it already has me so pumped to read. And I was on a reading momentum decline because I've been playing video games a lot. So I think it'll help add some balance. That said, I have read quite a bit this month so far. All of them are pretty short. But it doesn't make me feel like I've read less, even though, probably statistically, it's just as many pages as normal. And most of them are audiobooks. Physical reading time, still a struggle bus. But the first thing I finished is this nonfiction called Living Resistance, and next weekend, not this weekend, I will be in a live show with Jess Owens about it. It is basically, I don't know if call to action is the right word, but it's an Indigenous nonfiction about how to live your life with resistance and the balance of that. I'll have more of my thoughts at that live show. I'm currently still thinking about it. Thinking about what I liked, what might have not worked for me, depending on where I came from with all the other nonfiction and also my own lived experiences. It was interesting. I will say that, I guess in terms of nonfiction that have made me want to change how I do things, especially in terms of how I coexist with the land around me, that was more successful in Braiding Sweetgrass. I liked Braiding Sweetgrass a lot. I want to reread passages of that a lot. It really has informed how I live with my yard and stuff like that. So that one was more impactful for me. It resonated with me more than this one, but I could see this being very helpful to people. So I'm curious to see how Jess reads it and how other people do. So I finished that. And then because I finished the Inheritance trilogy last month, I continued on with its novella and the short stories, and let's talk about them together. Per usual, that novella is one of my favorite novellas of all time, and I'm not a novella person. I don't hate novellas. I rarely love novellas, but I love this novella. And it's interesting because the next novella we're going to talk about, there are parallels with this, and this one I love, and the other one I find kind of boring. So it's interesting. This one I love. It's Shill. There's this new godling being born into the world for the first time in eons. And she's basically recounting her learning how to become herself and figuring out her nature, because all the gods in this world have a nature and an antithesis. And you get to see a part of this world we normally don't get to see. We've spent a lot of our time with what are called the Arameri and on the main continent. But to the north, there are the Dare, and they are a different culture that have kind of had to be subservient to the Arameri because they were the ruling imperial force. And so we're in the Dare culture, and they are also different from what we even knew about them. So we get an insight into that while Shill is coming of age, and her voice is just so fun. What Jemison, I think, really does in the entire Inheritance trilogy is really capture how time for a god would be so different than time for a mortal, and that does impact things as simple as storytelling. And it's just so cute and precocious. I remember when I physically read this, I loved it. And then the audiobook with Robin Miles was also delightful. I think really just captured just the naivete and innocence of this precocious little godling as it's just fumbling about and trying its best, accidentally making mistakes, how it recovers from those mistakes, how it's trying to figure out who they're supposed to be because they feel like they're a disappointment because they are not necessarily the mold that they think their parents wanted them to be, and then they find a human with a similar problem. I like a good coming-of-age story. What can I say? And a coming-of-age story for a godling worked out really well. And then the short stories are just cute. They're just sweet. If you like the Inheritance trilogy, they're just fun to read. They're really short. They kind of introduce you to different, off-screen stories for certain characters and how they grew. And I just liked them. They're nice. They're nothing, super powerful or anything like that. But if you like the world, they are a really nice, little spicy little addition. So then I also read the novella Edge Dancer by Brandon Sanderson, because we're going to be talking about Words of Radiance and Edge Dancer soonish on Roger's channel. And so I'm like, okay, I got to get Edge Dancer done. I don't really like Edge Dancer. I don't hate Edge Dancer. Like, I think it's very common for people to love Lift as a character, who is a character in the Stormlight Archive, and hate Lift. And I think I'm just very in the middle. I'm very just bored when I'm with Lift. And I think part of that is like, Lift and I have very different coping mechanisms. And what's fascinating is, so they hide from their trauma in humor and not taking anything seriously, which is very similar to a character in Mistborn Era 2 that I like. His name is Wayne. People also love to love Wayne and love to hate Wayne. But whereas I really like Wayne, Lift I just find boring. And I don't know. And like, so this story is fine. She's basically trying to trick herself into thinking she's not trying to accomplish some greater good. She's running away from belonging because she doesn't know what it is to belong, learning more about what it means to be her Knights Radiant, all of that. And it's right after the events of Words of Radiance. And if you've read that book, there's like a big thing that happens. So that's also globally affecting where she is in the story. And there were some touching moments. There were things that I liked seeing her process. But I don't know why. The precociousness of her does not work for me. It's just like the precociousness of Shill does. And I don't know why I'm so bored with Lift, but I wasn't bored with Shill. And I think that's the big thing. It's like, I'm not even annoyed. If I was annoyed, it's at least an emotion. I'm more just like, okay, cool, let's go. And like, I'm also someone who's like very food motivated. So like, I should be with a character who's food motivated. Like, yeah, try all 10 pancakes down. That's like her goal for visiting this location, is to try out all these pancakes. And I should really like the banter between her and her spren, but that doesn't really work for me either. So I don't really know. And then like, the big bad of this story is just like a less good version of Hrathen from Elantris, like in terms of, I don't know, in my opinion. I'm just like, ugh. In my head, it's just like, this character is just so flat to me. And so like, not mustache twirling Vinland, but it's just not fleshed out to me. So yeah, Edge Dancer is okay. It is a very okay story. And I don't mind Lift when she's a supporting character. Like in Oathbringer, she has some of the funniest lines. But I think when she's the headliner of her own story and the novella is this long, and that's another difference. This is a significantly longer novella than The Awakened Kingdom. So it's just like, I don't like spending that much time with her. Her personality is not bad. I'm just bored. Like, so that's weird. I don't know. There were some interesting Cosmere things at the end that I forgot were interesting Cosmere things, which means I am glad I reread it. But also, I could just make myself a note, be like, and then in Edge Dancer, this Cosmere thing happens, and then never read it again. And maybe I should do that and love myself a bit more. So what am I currently reading? I'm currently reading two things. I'm actually really liking both of them. My current audiobook is Womb City, because I had to do the yard yesterday. And so I need another audiobook. And I thought, well, let's try this. You know, it's like a dystopian sci-fi that could work really well. I'm only this far in, but I'm really excited about this. So my main thing I was nervous about with this is having read the short stories by this author, and everything is very shiny. So I'll probably just put a picture up so you guys can more easily look for it on the interwebs. But normally when I've read the short stories by this author, they have been very, very dark, but also very challenging to read because of narrative form. This has been very straightforward to read so far. Still very unsettling, dark, thematically on the nose. Like, if you do not like Those Beyond the Wall, I don't think you're gonna like this, or something like that. It's very like, yeah, why are women more likely to have prejudice against them in the legal system than men, sort of thing. Like, it's super on the nose. Her husband is mad at her because she makes more money than him. Like, it's those type of things. She is considered a failure because she cannot have a child. Like, if you don't want to have those themes blatantly in your face, so far, they are very there. But the world is really interesting. It's very cyberpunk, because you can live for 250 years, but you can hop bodies. And I still don't quite know how these bodies are donated, but it reminds me of, oh gosh, I'm blanking. There's a sci-fi show and sci-fi book based off it where, like, basically your consciousness is in a chip and then you can be put into someone, etc. Now, the interesting twist so far in this world is that if the body, not you, the body in the past committed a crime, you have to go through this, like, interrogation every year to make sure you won't suddenly do a crime, or you might commit a crime in the future based off this AI interpretation. And that's interesting The fact that it's the body, not the quote unquote soul or consciousness that they consider responsible. And obviously this feels like a ploy to just like control more. So I'm just very interested in the voice. It's scratching that dystopian itch for me. I like a good classic cyberpunk sci-fi dystopian. It is, thematically on the nose, but it hasn't been bothersome to me because I'm distracted by the interesting world. So excited to keep going with that. And then, of course, my physical read, I am halfway through, is 7 Surrenderers. Basically, every other chapter is a reveal. And I'm just like... We're in the Discord. Always just like, I can't tell if I agree with this decision or not. That's what's the strength so far of this second book, is it's like, you are given reveals, and then you have to grapple with, is that bad? Good? Do I agree? Would I have done the same thing? Does that make me a bad person? You're just going through this because it's not clear cut. On one hand, you think this is awful. How could this be happening for so long? But on the other, it's like, do the ends justify the means? And the book is really pushing you with those questions. And you don't actually know what the book believes per se, especially because our narrator is completely unreliable. So everything is shaded in his perspective, which is not necessarily the author's perspective. And it's just like, So very fun, incredibly fun. So these two I will be working on today and tomorrow, which is like Thursday and Friday. It's Mother's Day weekend, so I don't know how much I'll get read during Mother's Day. But next week, for the readathon, I've got some plans. One of the prompts on the readathon board is to be part of a Patreon buddy read. You don't have to finish the book, but participate. And our short story collection for the month is Bloodchild by Octavia Butler. So I believe I will try and read some of this, mainly because I've been wanting to read this book since I picked it up in New York City like 2 years ago. So I should get to it. It's one of my last 2 Octavia Butlers to read, so that would be very cool. So that's something that I would like to work on next week during like a week-long readathon. And then also, I think it's time. I have Just for the Summer from the library, and I believe that would be super fun, especially with Bridgerton on the horizon. And I'm just like, I'm in an escapist, consumable romance mood. So I believe I will be getting to that one as well. So those are my 2 big reads on the horizon, in addition to these, thick sci-fi reads, and it feels like a fun balance. I don't know if I'll pick something else up instead. In life, basically all my bridesmaids, except the guy, want to be a part of this romance book club, and so we are going to be reading a book together, but I don't know if I'm going to pick it up from the library tomorrow, but I don't know when I'll get to it. It's called Earl's Trip. I don't know. I think it's a Ted Lasso romance or something like that, like a Ted Lasso Regency romance. I think the comp is if you like Bridgerton and Ted Lasso, which is basically one of my best friends, and why she picked it up and why she nominated it on our spinner wheel. But I don't know when I'll get to that, and if I'll get to that next week. Just for the Summer is a much higher priority for me, especially because I've been watching some reviews from people lately, and it's like, ooh, it's emotional. I like a good emotional romance. I like it. So we'll see what happens. But that's this reading update. Like I said, nothing too groundbreaking. A lot of things are rereads, but I'm really enjoying and I'm excited to keep reading things, which is all I can ever ask for. But yes, I'll leave an emoji to let me know you're here. What emoji? I think blood. I think blood. Blood makes sense to me. A blood emoji to let me know you're here. Let me know what you're reading, doing, watching this weekend. In terms of what I've been doing as well as all this is playing Hades, because that's happened. I'll talk about that more next week though, because I might be redoing my Hades book tag because that's all I've been doing is playing Hades. It's been a mistake. And then of course Horizon Forbidden West, and we started watching X-Men 97, which it is such a good soap opera. It's so good. Within the first 3 episodes, we had some classic soap opera tropes, but in a superhero guise, which I'm all here for, always. It reminded me of when I used to watch Charmed and stuff like that. So, yeah. But anyways, if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one.